What is work-life balance and how can you achieve it? Hi, my name is Jonas Niari. I'm a strategy consultant, and on this channel, I want to help you to learn the necessary skills that you need in your first years in consulting to be successful and to live a balanced life. And today, we talk about work-life balance, and at the end of this video, I will share 5 secrets on how to achieve a work-life balance in intensive jobs like management consulting. So when I started my career in consulting, of course, I was kind of afraid because I knew that in this industry, I would probably work very long hours. So I was kind of scared because I was obviously also interested in some kind of healthy work-life balance. So around that time, I started reading and tried to learn about work-life balance and try to understand what it is all about. And I think one thing that we can agree upon is that at the end, work-life balance is about living a happy life. I think that's the ultimate goal of having a good work-life balance. The thing was, or the problem that I saw was that I knew people who were working really long hours who seemed to have a very happy life. So when I asked them, do you live a happy life? They said, yes, I'm completely fulfilled. For example, entrepreneurs or people like that who really, found their purpose and are really satisfied with their life. On the other hand, I knew people who were, working not that many hours. And when I asked them if they were happy, they said, I'm not really satisfied with my life. So I concluded that the pure amount of hours that you work cannot be, defining factor that determines our work-life balance, or at least not the only factor. So still I was wondering, okay, what is work-life balance and how can I achieve it? So I struggled with this question for a very long time until I came across a concept that really helped me to understand how work-life balance actually works. And this was also, the principle, these were the principles that I use for my own work-life balance that helped me in the past 4 years in consulting to really live a healthy work-life balance despite having those long working hours. And this is exactly the concept that I want to share with you today. And at the end, I want to share my personal tips on how to achieve a healthy work-life balance. So to start with this topic, I asked you to do a little thought experiment with me. And I want you to imagine that you are a cook and that you have to cook a meal, let's say maybe for yourself or for a person that you really, really like. Now you want to create a good meal, and of course, you have different kind of ingredients that we see in every meal. So you can choose between, some protein, so some fish, meat, or tofu for all the veggies out there. Then every meal, has some vegetables like tomatoes, carrots, or whatever you want. In most cases, we also have some carbs, so some rice, some pasta, noodles, or some potatoes. And in all cases, or most cases, we have some spices, that add some flavor to your meal. So those are the ingredients that we can use. I mean, of course, there are probably more ingredients, but just, for this thought experiment, to keep it simple, let's assume we have those 4 categories of ingredients. Of course, we have a certain budget. Okay, we cannot spend all, the money that we want, but we rather had a budget and, to spend this budget wisely in order to create a great meal. Let's say we have 10 euros for this meal. Now, before we talk how we can prepare a good meal, let's agree on a few things and a few assumptions. So the first one is, I think that we can agree upon that in most cases you need a little bit of all the ingredients. I mean, of course, there are some meals probably where you only have meat or only have vegetables, but to be honest, those meals are probably not very exciting. So I think we can agree upon that, in most cases, you need a little bit of each of those ingredient categories. Then the second thing that we can probably agree upon is that there are different preferences, okay? So some people really like to have a lot of protein in the meal because maybe they want to gain some muscle, so they need the protein. Some people want to live very healthy, so they, really want to have a lot of vegetables. Some people need a lot of energy, so they want to have a lot of carbs. And some people like to have it very spicy, so they really want to have a lot of spices. So this means every one of us has individual preferences, and this means that the weighting of those ingredient categories varies, of course, from person to person. I think we can agree on that as well. And the third thing that we need to agree upon before we talk about creating a good meal is the following: there is not one recipe that creates a great meal. Everyone is individual, and there are probably hundreds and thousands of different recipes with different combinations that you could use to create a really, really delicious meal. So, with that being said, and if we agree upon those three things, then now let's talk about 5 steps to create a good meal. And I think it all starts in step number 1 with the right recipe. And this means that you only cook a meal that you really like. So, every one of us has a favorite meal. And, this just means that before you even start cooking, you have to think about what kind of meal, what kind of recipe do I even like. So if you don't like German food, then you probably should not cook German food. If you don't like Indian food, then you probably shouldn't cook Indian food. Okay, so the first step is always to think about the recipe. After that, you have to decide, okay, what are the right ingredients? If you have to choose from all of those 4 ingredient categories, what are the right ingredients? So it doesn't make any sense that, if you are a veggie, for example, that you take as a protein source, that you take fish or meat. No, you rather take tofu or beans, for example. The same if we talk about vegetables, and you really, maybe you have an allergy, and you cannot eat tomatoes, then of course you cannot use tomatoes. Rather, you use ingredients that you really like and that really, are delicious to you. So decide on the right ingredients. This is the second step. Then the third step is to decide on the quantity of ingredients, again based on your personal preferences. So as I said, there are the people who really like to have a lot of protein. There are people who really like to have a lot of vegetables or a lot of spices or a lot of carbs. So choose or decide on the quantity of the ingredients that you use in order to prepare a meal that is tasty to you. Then, of course, you also can level up your meal if you choose the right quality of the ingredients. So this means, that you, instead of, just buying this very cheap tomatoes from the discounter that are not fresh anymore, that you buy, really, regional, maybe bio quality tomatoes, from your local farmer, for example, that really have a very good taste. And then you don't need much tomato in order to create a very, very good taste. Okay. And this is the fourth step, to decide on the quality of your ingredients. And then the last step is, of course, to stay within the budget. So this means that you need to use your 10 euros wisely in order to create a meal. And as I said, this comes with different choices. So this comes, that you decide on the quality, on the quantity, on the types of ingredients. There are many different choices that you have to make, but you have to stay within the budget in order to prepare this meal. So those are the 5 steps that help you to prepare a good meal. But now obviously you're asking, okay, why are we doing this thought experiment? The reason is that the same questions that we ask ourselves when we talk about preparing this meal, those are exactly the same questions that we need to ask ourselves if we talk about healthy work-life balance. So with that being said, let's jump into it. Let's talk about the 5 secrets for a great work-life balance. And now we apply some similar principles. The difference is that this time we don't want to cook a meal, but we want to create a healthy work-life balance. And instead of ingredients, we now have different areas of life that we need to manage. I think we can agree upon that we have a professional life, our work, and a private life. And if we talk about work, of course, this is our job in a business. This is what you do for a living. But we have many other areas in our private life that also contribute to a happy life. And those 5 factors are basically, there is scientific evidence for that, that those are 5 criteria or 5 categories that are important if we talk about happiness in our life. Okay, so this means in order to be happy, we need to be able to manage all of these categories in our life. So what are those categories? As I said, job and business. Then we have relationships. So you cannot be happy without having good relationships. That's just how we are socially wired. Of course, you need your finances. So you cannot be happy if you have financial problems all the time. This might get difficult. Also your health. If you're not healthy, of course you cannot be happy. And also your spirit is very important. So this means that you are kind of balanced, that you take some time off to relax. For some people, spirituality is very important, or some call it managing your emotions. Okay, so being in a positive state of mind is also important. Otherwise, if you're only stressed out, you cannot be happy. And at the end, the job and the business, having something that really, is a purpose for you, that really, makes you contribute to society, is also very important. So those are the five aspects of our life. I mean, there are other aspects as well, but those are the five main aspects. And in this time, instead of having a budget in terms of money, we have a budget in terms of time. So our task is to use our time in a way that we create a balance between those five areas. And this is a very, very important core concept that you need to understand if we talk about work-life balance. Now, again, before we talk about those five steps that help us to achieve work-life balance, let's get clear on a few assumptions. First, of course, in most cases or in all cases, you need all of the ingredients. So there's probably no one out there who says, okay, I don't need relationships, I don't need any kind of money at all, or I don't need health. That just that doesn't exist. So we can agree probably upon that we need a little bit of all of those areas. The second thing we need to agree upon again is that there are different preferences. So there are people like Elon Musk, for example, who really put a lot of focus on the work part. For him, it's not that important to have that many relationships, but he rather really wants to work a lot. But then there are other people who say, for me it's really important to spend a lot of time with my family. That's a huge part of my life and it really makes me happy. Or there are other people who say, okay, I need to do a lot of sports, otherwise I cannot be happy. So there are different preferences, and I think we can agree upon that as well, that we have to respect that, and that for everyone the combinations of those areas might be different. And then the third thing is that there is not one solution that helps you, that helps everyone to achieve a great work-life balance. No, it's very individual. It highly depends on your preferences. And if someone comes to you and has the one solution for your work-life balance, or has to dictate you, how much hours you have to spend with that or that or that, this is just nonsense, because it highly depends on your personal preferences. So those are some things that we should agree upon before we start now into the 5 steps that really help you to have a healthy work-life balance. And of course, those steps are similar to the steps that we discussed when we talked about preparing the meal. Step number 1 is that you know exactly what you want, and this is the parallel to the right recipe. And this means that before we approach work-life balance, that we need to understand, what do we want of life? Okay, what do we want? How much time do we want to spend with our work? How much time do we want with our private life? These are choices that we have to make, but we have to be clear about. The worst thing that we can do is to actually be someone for whom private life is very important, but then living a life in which we work all the time, or being someone for whom is the work very important, but then we spend all the time with our private life. So get your priorities straight, really think about, try to understand what you want of your life, and then actively decide on it. The second step is that you do what you love. And this is similar to the right ingredients in our cooking example. So what does it mean? Of course, every one of us needs a job, but we need to do what we love. If you work in a job that you really don't like, then chances to live a happy work-life balance are very, very low, because you cannot get happy. Because if you go every day to a job that is not fulfilling to you, that doesn't really add value to you, where you don't see a purpose in, then probably you won't be happy. So do something you love. It's the same with relationships in your private areas, for example. If you spend time with people that you don't really like, if you spend time with people that don't really add to your happiness, then don't spend time with these people. Okay, just actively decide, what do you want to do, okay, and who are the people you want to spend time with. And this is the same for all the other areas in your life. So this is step number 2: do what you love. Step number 3 is that you decide what to do. And in the example of our meal preparation, it's the quantity of ingredients. So now we are talking about activities. So if you say now, what kind of areas in your life are important to you, what you really love to do, then now it's time to decide on the activities that you do. Okay, actively decide, okay, what in my week, what time in my week, and what time in my day do I want to spend for what kind of activities. Okay, so for example, if we talk about sports, and then really think about, okay, how much time do I want to spend with doing sports? How much time do I want to spend with friends? How much time do I want to spend in my job. This is step number 3, decide what you do, very important. And then the fourth step is to get the best out of every single hour. And this is, quality of ingredients basically. And this means that we can level up our life if we really focus on getting the best out of our hour. And this is true for both the work side but also the private side. So for the work side, for example, instead of spending 1 hour in our work, just hanging on out on social media all the time, it's better to spend 1 hour really productively, because then we get more done. But it's the same if we talk about our private life. Let's talk about relationships, for example. Instead of spending one time with the family and then not be really being there because you're thinking about the work all the time, really try to create experiences, really try to be there in that hour and get the most out of that moment. Or my favorite example, if we do sports, there's also a reason why I work with a personal trainer, for example, is that I really want to get the best out of this 1 hour. So instead of going to the gym and then hanging around at the bar and drinking protein shake and talking to all the people all the time, I'm forced to get the most out of this hour because the personal trainer really pushes me. So this is step number 4, that you really get the best out of every hour. And then finally, step number 5 is that you spend your time wisely. So we talked before about the budget. When we talk about the meal, we had 10 euros to spend for the budget, but we have to understand that the time is the most valuable resource that we have, and that spending our time wisely is the most important thing that we can do if we want to actively manage our work-life balance. So to summarize, know what you want, do what you love, decide what you do, get the best of every hour, and then spend your time wisely. And keep in mind that work-life balance is a very individual thing. It highly depends on what kind of preference you have. You have to decide for yourself, and you actively have to manage it for yourself, how you approach and how you achieve work-life balance. If that was interesting to you, and if you want to learn more about work-life balance, then please leave a comment below. Also check out my free masterclass where I talk about the skills that you need in your first years in consulting. Of course, we also talk about work-life balance, because it's a very important topic. If you want to see more of those videos, then please subscribe to this channel and leave a thumb up. This will help you that you don't miss any new video here. And with that being said, I wish you a very successful day. Hope to talk to you soon. Goodbye, Johannes.